with Phoebe Ploom. We're still here. I'm really excited, to have you here. I'm excited about this conversation, but I'd like to start with just very quickly those in the room going around the room and introducing themselves, starting with you, if you don't mind, and just a very quick introduction.
Hi, my name is Troy.
Hey, Troy.
I walked into the gallery last week and we were all like hanging out because I noticed all of your beautiful paintings and I was trying to get into them, but then I started to become nosy.
Oh, okay.
And he's an artist as well.
Okay.
And a professor.
Yes,
and your art practice is?
So I do not portraiture, but figurative paintings.
Mm-hmm.
And I had started to grapple with the concept of collage, and I walked in here and kind of like summarized a few things for me.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Misha.
Hi, my name is Misha. I had the pleasure of meeting Ms. Ploom, I think like a couple hay nights ago, like back in like 2024. And I was just really blown away by your art and your presence and, here just to take in the vibes, learn more about your process. I'm also a visual artist too, I do like portraiture,
Yeah, terrific. And that's the piece I really want to focus on, you as artists, what your particular practice is, so that you know who else is in the room. There may be an opportunity to connect around your practice. Debbie.
Hi, I'm Debbie Taylor-Cameron. I'm an artist here, I love Harlem. I'm an abstract figurative painter.
Cool.
Yeah. I had a solo show here.
Exactly.
A couple of months ago.
Thank you. We're just doing very quick introductions.
All right, my name is Corey. I'm a close friend of the family.
Okay.
Artist here.
Okay.
I support her 1,001%.
Absolutely, thank you.
And my name is Nancy, and I'm Laverne Ploom, or Phoebe Ploom's sister.
Thank you. We're just making quick introductions.
Hi, I'm Hermes. I'm an artist.
And your practice?
Multidisciplinary, textiles and abstract work. I just kind of put it all together.
Fantastic, thank you.
My name is Robert. I'm a photographer, filmmaker, and I love coming to the Heath Gallery.
Thank you. Moses.
My name is Moses Harper. I'm a visual artist, a musician, and author, and I run a business, and I'm a curator, and I'm an adoring fan. Great and powerful music.
Thank you. And Hollis.
Hi everyone, I'm Hollis Heath of the Heath Gallery, and I'm a producer, and I'm really excited for this talk. Thank you for coming out today.
Thank you. So what we're going to do, I want to take the time to walk through your journey as an artist, talk to you about the process of your work, talk to you about some of the themes behind your work, messaging, those kind of things, and then we're going to open the floor for any questions that you may have. And what I would ask is that there may be questions that pop up even as I'm asking questions or as Phoebe is responding, but if you would be sure to hold your questions until the end, I'd much appreciate it. And so Phoebe is a mixed media folk artist who was born in Philadelphia, but raised in New Jersey.
Yes.
And why don't we start with you just telling us a little bit about how you came up, the point at which you discovered you were an artist, your connection to art, kind of some of the basic who you are kind of thing.
Sure. Army brat. So born in Philadelphia at Naval Hospital.
Yeah, I didn't know
yes.
that.
And
I'm
then
an Air Force brat.
Are you? Okay. And did some traveling in Alaska. It was probably about as exotic as our travels were. But my father eventually retired from Fort Dix in New Jersey. And that's how I spent most of my informative years there. But went to school in Philadelphia to become a registered nurse. And it was probably while I was in Philadelphia, going to the Philadelphia Art Museum, that I fell in love with art more so than, of course I always appreciated it, but walking around the gallery there and seeing the incredible work made me feel something said, I want to try this. And I suppose there was always doodling. One of the first things I started out with was what I called big heads. I was doing these, impractical as it was, because if you watch this, it is going to be destroyed. But I started doing these just for myself, and people noticed them. And I thought, wow, maybe I'm onto something there. It wasn't really a career choice. I had made that. But as a psychiatric nurse, I found a way to incorporate art into therapy and healing and reflecting on how your life is and how it's impacted by what you see on a canvas. And we would look at an artist's painting, we would discuss the artist, and there's tragedy for all of us, but it seems like a lot of artists had really tragic lives, you know? And so my patients could relate to that. And then the best part of it was now those feelings that this painting has evoked for you, let's put them on canvas. And wow, some of the work that they did was so impressive. And in the process, I started doing more and more on my own. Hey, Dennis.
I can't believe you started early. I said black people don't start.
These black people do.
There you go.
I had at least 6 minutes.
And so,
I'm sorry.
that's okay. And so got serious about it probably in the past 15 years or so, that I started doing paintings and mostly just sharing them with family and friends, but getting a positive response. So that's the initial journey into this.
You know, before you became a nurse, you were on the path to another profession. Can you talk about how that got interrupted? And I'm just really fascinated about what it was about that led you here.
Yeah, I still do. I love the written word, and had a fantasy of becoming a writer at the time, and was on a path to do that, and feeling like this is my calling. But I spent a summer working in a hospital in medical records. Kind of a boring job in those days, no computer, so just waiting for a patient to come to hospital, and I would take the chart and put it in a tube and send it to the unit. In the process of just sitting there, I started reading the charts and wanting to know, wow, what is all of this jargon, and you know, reading about the life-saving things that were happening, and wanted to be a part of it. I went back to college that year and switched my major to nursing. I believe that we all have a path. And if we just trust the signs along the way, you'll get led to where you should be. And so that's how I ended up with the nursing. And then the art was incorporated into it. My mother was an artist. I don't think that she would have called herself an artist, but everything that she did had a flourish to it. You know, if she put flowers together, they just couldn't stick them in a vase. There had to be aligned in a certain way. Then she'd tie a beautiful ribbon. She did these amazing, huge scale needlepoint until her eyes went bad. Gigantic pictures of Native Americans on horseback, hair flowing, and we would give them out. She just would hand them out to folks, and so she was an artist, and I think that's probably where I get the gene from.
Yeah, thank you. So as a nurse, you're a healer. As an artist, I would say that you're a healer also. I love your thoughts on that. I was sharing with Phoebe earlier that last week I went to the Colored Girls Museum, and the curator there, Vashti Dubois, she talked about this concept of community curation, and that curation is really about the cure, that when you're curating, hey, there you are. This is one of my traveling partners in the back there, Lisa. But anyway, she talked about that when you're curating, there's something that you're curing. So I was talking with Phoebe about that, and a little would like your thoughts on the connection between yourself as a nurse, between you as an artist. What's the connection there? Is there something that you are looking to cure in your practice?
Absolutely. When you look at a painting and it evokes feelings, for example, of pain, okay, you have to identify the pain. You have to get in touch with the pain. And if a painting can be, the precipitation to look at a painting and feel love or feel warmth, one, that's helping us to get in touch with the feelings. And then once you're in touch with the feelings, if you can identify them. A painting like this might evoke feelings of anger. But anger is a God-given emotion that we all experience. And so in the process of saying, this makes me angry, well, what do you do with that anger? And in the process of identifying the feelings, you're on your way to curing them. Just by getting in touch with it. And I think art is a beautiful medium for helping us to find our emotions. That's the first step, I think, to being able to cure what ails us.
Sure, sure. You talked a little bit about your mom. Can you tell us a little bit, about your family composition, and this work coming out of the experience that you had with your father?
Mm-hmm. We were a small family, comparatively. Lots of cousins and aunts, but we just kind of seemed to just hang together. There was annual trips to visit other family, but for the most part, it was 2 girls and 2 boys and my parents.
Where
Mom,
were they from?
Dad was born in Bladen County, North Carolina, around Elizabethtown, I believe, 1926. Mm-hmm. And 1926 for a black man in the South kind of says it all. You know what he was experiencing. Jim Crow, segregation, lynching, water fountains for whites only. That was his reality. He had a 7th grade education. He was told that's probably going to be sufficient for his needs, for his contribution to this country. So he enlisted at a young age in the military, and it was segregated at the time. But Truman, from what I understand, desegregated the military, the army, during his time there because of the Korean War, and they needed more soldiers. Despite that, he said that his superiors, the colonels, the lieutenants, refused to accept the fact that this was a disintegrated military now. And so he spent most of his time as an enlisted man being called a boy or a worthless nigger every day. He said that as a soldier, his job was relegated to cleaning latrines, cleaning boots, peeling potatoes. And it was an integrated military despite that. So certainly in hearing that story, it helped me with healing my relationship with him. Because when you see anger, when you see a volatile personality, when you see someone who just doesn't ever seem to be able to be happy, and then you understand what the man went through, it gives you a different perspective. And it certainly helped with healing my relationship with him and understanding where he was coming from. My mother, on the other hand, grew up in Philadelphia, born 1936, and was very close-lipped about her experiences. But she grew up in the projects. She was raised one of 5 by a single mother with the help of whatever was available from the government to get by. And 10 years younger than my father. So kind of like meeting him and marrying him was like a coup for her, because that got her out of Philadelphia and the projects and traveling as a military wife. But as I said, those were hard times for both of them if you consider the time in which they grew up. He later in years began to be more verbal about his experiences, but both of them really, I don't know if it was they were shielding us from the realities of their pain, or they just wanted to sweep it under the rug and don't talk about that, let dead dogs lie. You know, my father told of an experience where he, and this was in the 60s, he went to a diner after a long day on the road to get a hot meal. No one ever offered him, this is in the South, no one ever offered him a table, although the sign said wait to be seated. So he said, well, could I get a menu? And he was told, we don't have menus. So then he was said, well, can I get a ham and cheese sandwich and maybe a bottle of pop to go? He was told no, and at this point he realized that folks had stopped eating and they were getting a little nervous in their seats. It was a predominantly white restaurant. I believe he said there was a black cook in the kitchen. And at that point he said, can I get some water? And the waitress said, you can get water to go. And he said that was humiliating and painful for him. And I said, well, why did I never hear this story? And his response was, what's the sense of talking about it? Those things don't happen anymore. But he was wrong. I don't know how many of you heard about what happened at the Chick-fil-A. Anybody? 4 police officers, all in their uniforms, 1 black, 3 whites, went to Chick-fil-A, and this was in Savannah, and ordered their food. And each officer was told on the house, we don't charge our law enforcement. Thank you for your service. When it was the black officer's time to order his food, he was asked to pay. That's no different than what happened to my father many years ago. And so it is still happening, and I think that's where, as he told these stories, as they came out of him like a flood, it's what made me want to start telling our story. Because if we keep revisiting it, maybe things start to change. If we push it under the rug, they don't. We can affect change by remembering what happened, reflecting on it, and asking ourselves how it makes us feel, which I don't think neither of my parents got in touch with how they felt. I think they internalized it, compartmentalized the feelings. Kind of dangerous. So if you look at a painting and it evokes some good feelings or bad feelings, I think it's all valuable.
Yeah. So you have a commitment, as I understand. If correct me, if I speak out of turn and say something that's incorrect, but I believe that you have a commitment to painting, the decades or painting seasons or time periods in African American history, in American history. Starting with enslavement and then, moving on to, Reconstruction. And
yes.
So when you think about each period, and the bulk of this work deals with the period of enslavement, how did you determine what are the stories that you were going to tell?
There's a lot of influence out there, good books, great movies, and as I started to watch movies like Amistad or 12 Years a Slave, or Django Unchained, which is a classic, okay? As I started to watch those movies, there were stories, individual stories that impacted on me, and I think that they're reflected. It is a painting of lynching, but in particular, it was after watching a movie that I thought about a woman and 2 men that were actually lynched. And so there is some historical background, which is important to me. I like to do a little bit of research. And so there is a little bit of historical background to each of them, but a lot of it came from just influences, stories that I had heard or read about, and I wanted to give face to those folks.
You were sharing a little bit earlier about your favorite work in this show, in this exhibit. Do you want to talk to us about that piece? And then, why don't you talk to us about that piece?
It's in the back corner here, and it depicts a lady and 2 men that are being lynched. I had gone to a museum. It's dedicated strictly in Montgomery, strictly to lynching. And you think, wow, is this even something that I want to see? But absolutely, you do want to see it because it is history. 4,400 black people between 1877 and 1950 lynched in this country for something as simple as looking at a white woman with the wrong intention in your mind. You just looked at her sideways. It could have been for just being uppity. It could have been for being superior. There were no trials. They weren't afforded any any of their constitutional rights. They were simply just guilty by association. That museum made me realize that folks were being lynched, and these were kind of like parents would take their children out of school for the day. There's going to be a lynching. You're not going to school today. They would make a picnic lunch and go to the lynching. They would take photographs. They would mutilate body parts and sell the body parts. Souvenirs as souvenirs. They had postcards. And I was so impacted by that I felt like I just wanted to commemorate that, but I realized how difficult that could be. And so looking at the painting, they're kind of nicely dressed, at least the female is. It's bright colors. How do you add whimsy? How do you soften such a painful reality? But I hope that I achieved that while still having the person that's looking at it think, well, wait a minute, these people are hanging from a tree. And that has to, without benefit of any legal representation, without being found guilty, I can't imagine someone looking at that and not wanting to know more. And I realized that I started out wanting to be a writer and tell stories, but I can do that with the paintings, I hope.
Yeah. That's one of the things I was really struck by, that, some of the most difficult of the subjects that you portrayed, there's a lot of beauty and light. Mm-hmm. And, I was just thinking about the choices that you made and curious about why, you made that choice. Do you have a particular favorite color palette across your work?
Blue. Yeah, I would say, yes. Mm-hmm. Blue could be the midnight sky, but it also could be, it softens things. The sky it's calming, it's mellow, it's one of those colors, I think, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are there stories, so one of the things that you talked about, that your work is research-based and that you visit as many museums of African American history around the country mm-hmm. as possible. And so you've seen a lot and read a lot. Are there things that you have just decided that this is a story that I'm not going to portray, or I don't,
There's been some stories of things that I don't know how I would portray, but I would, were it not so fantastical and potentially offensive. Mm-hmm. For example, with this painting, you see the lashes on his back. Well, one thing I learned in research, because I wanted to research what were the techniques for torturing, how were enslaved people punished.
Make sure that those in the back can see this piece.
Mm-hmm, oh yeah. And so what I realized, there was a gentleman, Thistlewood, who was a overseer initially. He was from Britain and ended up on a plantation in Haiti, sugarcane plantation, and he was very creative with his methods of punishment. So he created something called the Darby dose. Once the perpetrator was lashed several times, usually with a bullwhip, which is especially damaging to the flesh, cuts through like a knife. The Darby dose was to pour urine in it, to put salt brine, hot pepper juice into the wound, sometimes turpentine. That was the Darby dose. For this particular gentleman, because his offense was he was caught eating a piece of sugar cane, that was apparently not enough. So to supplement that and to set an example for others who would dare have a piece of sugar cane, another enslaved man was forced to defecate in his mouth. I'm not sure how I could have put that on a painting, but the story's there and it opens it up. You look at it and you think, yeah, it's somebody that would, obviously there was some crime committed and there was a punishment, but it was much more than that. And there's an argument for why do we need to know that? I think we need to know that because history can repeat itself. Maybe not in the same form and fashion, of course, but if we're not aware of what still ails us, what's still wrong with the world, then how do we correct the problem? And I also think that it's just right to know your history. You know, we know the history of lots of things. That why are we leaving out some narratives? You know, it's important for children to know, I think. As difficult as that is for children to know, but there is always the flip side to that. Yes, there have been incredible strides. And how did we make those strides? And what did we come up from? I always looked at myself as a Black American. Kind of no such thing. When I did my DNA background, 23andMe, I am half Nigerian, Igbo, and the rest is German and Irish, obviously from, you know, mixed breeding on a plantation. But that made a huge difference for me. You know, it really wanted me to know my story and how my ancestors got here, knowing that they were just doing what they do on a Nigerian village, and here we are. So I think it's important for us to keep the dialogue going.
How did knowing your history and your background and your lineage, how did that make a difference in the day in and day out aspects of your life?
Well, now I want to know about Nigerians.
Okay.
One
Did that make you feel differently,
Well, yeah, absolutely. There are more Nigerians with PhDs than any other culture and that just made me feel good.
Yeah.
It made me feel proud, like, wow,
Yeah.
Interesting tidbit, you know?
Yeah.
And I didn't really have, as a nurse, of course, I work with people from all over the country, in the world, and one of my dearest friends, Kenichi, is from Nigeria, but Kenichi was Nigerian and I was Black American, but now I'm like my sister, you know, and it's a different relationship for us. It really is now, yeah. And I think that she probably saw me as, you know, Phoebe's, you know, she grew up here, et cetera, et cetera. She's kind of maybe even looking down her nose at me a little bit. But once I realized we are the same, we truly are sisters, it really makes a difference.
Yeah. I remember you sharing with me that some of the stories that your dad told, he didn't tell until the back end of his life when he was in the process of transitioning, and that he shared with you also that some of these stories that he didn't share because he was ashamed, and yet you looked at his life and had a sense of pride about what he had accomplished and given where he'd come from. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
Because I think that's also while you've talked about wanting to capture some of the difficult narratives of American experience, there's this pride piece that you want to make sure comes across as well. So.
That comes from this painting here. He was a homeowner. Right out of the military, he purchased our first home. For Fort Dix, you had a lot of gentlemen retiring, and realtors would show families to particular areas. My father had his mindset. There was an area, where I grew up, some streets were named after birds and some were named after airports. And the ones that were named after birds were typically where realtors would take a Black family. And all the neighborhood there was Black. And of course, that's where we were shown houses. And he said, I don't care for anything here. He said, I want to see something in the airport district. So we ended up on Tinker Drive. We were the first African-American family there. And so he likes to say we integrated that area. But he was a homeowner and we did have a station wagon. We always were a two-car family. He worked hard to get us those things. He ended up having his own janitorial business. And had folks working for him, and he did the contracts for Howard Johnson's, which goes back a way, but he would clean, shampoo the rooms, and he was a hustler who achieved so much in life, working for himself with his own business. That was an achievement, especially for somebody with a 7th grade education who was told that was about all he was going to need to get somewhere in life, so yeah.
Did you have that sense, did you understand fully what he had accomplished before learning what he'd come from or what his background? Was there a shift for you I know that you said there was a shift for you in understanding the dynamics of the relationship and his personality. but was there a shift for you in understanding who he was in the world in terms of achievement when you reflected on where he'd come from?
Yeah, there was, and I don't think it was readily acknowledged. He struggled, always feeling, I think, without articulating, I think he always felt less than second-class citizen, despite his achievements, and always felt that what he had worked so hard for it. But what I hope I instilled in him was that you worked hard for it, but you were entitled to it. That all of us on this planet should have an opportunity to be as successful as we can, and you reach that goal. But I don't think that he ever fully felt that. I think he always felt that he was a second-class citizen, but that's just the times that he grew up in.
Yeah. What would you like, I want to jump into some of the pieces, but as a whole, what would you like for us to take away from this body of work?
History, to look at it and to think, what do those faces represent? They represent a lot: pain, deprivation, racism, but they also represent resilience and strength and courage and beauty. That's real important, you know. We have to see ourselves as beautiful, and if you take away those things and you see it a part of your history, which is so relevant and such a huge contribution to where we are today, if you see that in a painting, and you see that life is life, you know, we gather around a table together, and we break bread together, and if you see that and it reminds you of family, if it reminds you of fortitude and grace and gratitude, then it works.
Are those themes, somebody who's not Black, what are they to take away in looking at this work? Is it the same? Or would you say that the themes are universal? Is there something else different that they should be seeing? Do you think these play differently depending upon, you know, where you sit in the world?
Yes, I certainly have had friends not of the Black persuasion that have looked at my work and awkward, to say the least. Not really sure to say something placating like, oh, that's so sad, it's so terrible that, you know, people had to go through that. Sometimes you'll hear that type of a statement, but I'm hoping that people look at the nature of the work and they see pride there, like, wow, you know, this is amazing that this, first of all, that it happened in the first place, and that we see the strides that have been made, but I also hope that they think something should be done and get a little angry about the injustice of it. I'm a fan of reparations. It was not something that I learned about until I was an adult. I just stumbled across an article about Japanese Americans during World War II. And man, I was like, are you kidding me? $1.6 billion the United States under Ronald Reagan gave to Japanese Americans, $20,000 for each survivor that had been placed incarcerated in an internment camp with a formal apology. That $20,000 today would be equivalent to about $54,000 per person. 820,000 people took advantage of that. That's a lot of money. I could buy a pretty decent little car for $20,000. Give me $20,000, I can work with it. I can invest it, you know? And so I'm thinking, whoa, you know, if you look at this as a person, a white person, and you look at this and you realize, because you know, but maybe you don't know, let's give everyone the benefit of the doubt. History is not always shared as accurately as it should be. We know today that we have an administration that would like to water it down, minimize it, maybe even rewrite history if they can do that at some point in time. But if you're looking at it and you're saying, wow, this is really something what happened, sign the petition for reparations. Jump over to that side, because I think we should get those reparations.
Got it. Some of the paintings in this exhibit are directly tied to personal experience. Others are very much research-based. Can you talk to us about those that are tied to your personal experience?
Certainly, this one here. My father, as I said, was from the South, and so there was an annual road trip that was made with the family, and you kind of look happy because you're getting excited for an adventure, but they were traumatic experiences sometimes. And I realize now that as the closer we got to the South, the more my father started like erratic driving and cutting people off and arguments. But I think there was a tension there from that annual trip to the South that started to evoke all those images in him of like, you know, here we go again. On one of the road trips, and I hope my sister doesn't mind if I tell the story, she needed the restroom, and so Dad pulled over and said to the gas station attendant, okay, my daughter, can I get the key to your restroom? My daughter needs to use it. And of course he was told no. And he said, why not? Is it not working? And the gentleman said, we don't let your kind use our restrooms. And we're in the middle of nowhere. If you've been down south, you could go for an hour without seeing a public restroom. And so he came back to the car, and rather than to say, can't use it because of the color of our skin, he said, it's out of order. You know, again, how do you come, he's our protector, he's a strong man, and he wanted to say, oh, this is BS. Come on, I saw someone just come out, but he didn't because he felt the police would be called, he could be arrested, even worse could have happened. So the road trips were definitely a source of, they were fun because of the family nature of things and getting away, but I realized that the bickering between my parents and how he seemed to tense up as we got closer to the South, I think it was because those memories and anticipating, you know, for the example, what happened with the restroom. Yeah. But this is from those memories which, you know, car, family, house, good times for the most part.
And I love all the detail, and you know, work is very detailed, and I love the choices that you make and what you put inside of your paintings. What about the shopping trip?
The shopping trip, you know, on the surface it looks like two women getting on a bus, but I chose to make it an older bus. The 1936 is in reference to the year my mother was born. Philadelphia, of course, where she was born and I was born. It is probably from the 1960s. Shopping has always been near and dear to my heart. For many women, retail therapy does the trick. So that's probably what this painting was about, but I realized that there's a significance to the bus. My father didn't get a chance to ride on the front of the bus, you know, and you hear these stories, you know, everybody, Rosa Parks, you know, but when you hear it from someone right from the horse's mouth that he had to wear short pants and say yes sir, no sir to any person that wasn't black, and he had to sit in the back of that bus. So again, it is really, it's in dedication to his experience in the South.
Thank you. Danner Farm, is that a real place?
It was, yes. Danner Farm was, Noble Jones was the owner of Danner Farm, and he was reportedly a more gentler plantation owner, if you will. He promised to emancipate all of his slaves upon death, which he did. Typically what would happen after one slave master would die is that he would be Heath the remaining enslaved persons to his son or his ancestors. But all of his, and there was over 100, which is phenomenal, were all released upon his death. And I tried to make these two as amiable as possible. You see the scars on their faces, but he did allow marriage. Of course, it wasn't legal. You had to be a human to get married, and since these folks were considered chattel or property, there was no legal basis for the marriage, but he did allow them to have a simple ceremony. And he promised if you were married that he would not separate you. And so I just wanted to pay homage to a kind of a decent guy in the scope of things, you know. Yeah.
And tell us about the third painting, not the one directly next.
Laundry Day?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, it was 14, 18 hours of work, but there was downtime. Sundays were always a day of rest. Sometimes maybe not during harvest, and so during that time they could attend to their own needs. The chicken probably wouldn't have been there. The chicken would have been eaten, and they weren't afforded chicken. They were typically given per week a bag, which came to about a gallon of cornmeal and some fatback, or I think what they called salt pork. But I just thought the chickens were kind of cute there. But she's just doing her laundry and living life. I'm amazed at folks who were brought here in chains, didn't speak the language, didn't understand anything, how wonderfully and quickly they assimilated. And I think that's a source of pride, that you wouldn't know it. You would think she had been born and raised here, and everything felt completely natural. There she is doing laundry. I don't think she was doing laundry and hanging out clothes in Africa, but we adapt. And I think it's one of the beautiful things about people of color, that we've been able to adapt and to assimilate and to get by. So that's just a laundry day.
You know, one of the things that you said in your research was really a source consistently of incredible cruelty was the taking of food. And, you know, that the enslaved worked all week, and that Sunday, you know, while I don't think we can think of leisure on a Sunday the same way that we would think of leisure now, but that this was the one day that they maybe didn't have to work, but there was very little food. And yet the taking of food was, you know, considered at the top list of crimes. Do you have any thoughts on why that was, particularly since we know that food is what's needed to labor? Do you have any thoughts on why that was considered such an incredible, you know, at the top of the list of things that?
Ironically, it was the only thing that the enslaved person thought to take was the food. They were surrounded. If you were working in the house, there was silver they could have stolen. There was cloth, lace that they could have stolen. But the only thing that they needed more than anything was nutrient supplement. Because when you're working 14, 18 hours a day in the hot sun, when you're bending over to the earth, your back, you need protein. And you need carbohydrates, and your body is craving them. So the temptation to just take an egg or to just take some sugar cane became overwhelming. And I think for the slave owners, that was just the most gross sin that you could commit, to take the food that should be on our table. They were allowed what was called provision grounds, what you and I would call a garden. Provision grounds were allowing them to supplement their cornmeal and the salt pork. And they would allow them to, one, it supplemented the rations, but it also gave them something to bargain with. I'll give you a potato, a yam, if you give me some needle and thread. And so when they're giving them the seed to grow for their provision grounds, and then they, God forbid, steal an egg, it just seemed to be the most atrocious of that. And reading were two huge sins, punishable with this type of thing. If you were learning to read, or you were stealing the food off of their table, especially when they were given the provision grounds as well.
Thank you. Talk to us a little bit about the practice of creating your art. How do you approach a painting?
Once I get a little bit of influence, I just usually start out with a sketch. And that sketch is just, it may change along the lines for sure, but I do my research at that point. I'm going to do a painting about lynching. I'm going to do a painting about marriage. What was marriage like? Was it ordained? And in the process, I'm getting a feeling of, is this going to be a happy couple? Is this going to be a not so happy couple? Is this what were they wearing? The broom, I think we're all familiar with the jumping of the broom. What it represents, sweeping away the past, unity. And so you want to incorporate that into the painting. So I start with the sketch, and then I start with the painting itself, and then the fun part is, of course, putting on the overlay. For the most part, I love to add a little bit of paper because I just like the depth of it, the movement that it creates. Depending upon the size of the painting and the fact that I work very slow, and I typically work on more than one painting at a time just because I kind of get bored if it's just, so maybe about 3 months thinking about it. I've been known to cover something completely and start again. The process is, it's emotional for me because as I'm painting it, I'm thinking, how am I feeling about this painting and how are others going to feel about it? I don't have a set, some people are thinking about colors and things of that. I'm just reaching for color as I go along with the painting. But for the most part, it starts out with just a sketch, and the research helps me to fill it in.
As a collage artist, as a mixed media artist who uses collage, where do you find and source your materials?
Oh, anywhere. Yeah, a lot of craft paper.
Your sister's laughing. That's an interesting laugh. Go ahead.
Anything, newspaper, photographs. I've been known to cut up a book or two and paste that. But craft paper, many times, you can find if you're looking for, Kenta cloth or something like that. Those types of things you have to be more creative with. But mostly just newspapers been incorporated. I even have some photos there. Somewhere along the lines, I think I'm in one of those. A little picture of me is there as well.
So are you collecting, welcome, are you collecting materials all the time?
There's scrap paper all over my house, okay. Yes, and bits and pieces of it that will never be swept up, so yes.
Okay. There was something else that, it's right on the tip of my, it'll come back to me, but it's not coming fast enough. Is there anything that we haven't touched upon that you would like to share, that you want to make sure that we know about who you are, that we know about your practice?
As a woman, it's always been important to me to elevate women whenever I have an opportunity. And so I think I really have an affinity for the paintings that have women in them and their struggle. But also their beauty and their contributions to generations to come. That impact we can't understate enough. And so the paintings, and probably when I think about it, most of them feature women, especially the unity, the love between sisters, not necessarily blood sisters, but we have to love our sisters, and support each other, know about what our sisters have gone through, and some of the struggles that women in especial have had to deal with from slavery time up, having a child and having that child weaned 3 months so that you can use your milk to nurse your enslaver's children. And typically that was done for up to 2 years. They would nurse their enslaver's child, breaking that bond between mother and child and depriving that child of nourishment. Having your child taken from you, of course that would affect any woman, any mother. And so and doing laundry, falling in love, so going shopping. So I think for me, I've tried to use my art to bring the cause of women, to bring the beauty of women, to bring the pain of women. Someone like Sojourner Truth, Rosa Parks, these are they're heroines, you know. And so when we talk about them, we feel good about ourselves, I hope, as females. So I think that I've tried to use, subliminally, I've tried to use my art to elevate the cause of women, and especially women of color, but women and what we've endured.
Sure. I've heard artists talk about the experience of being visited, you know, by their subjects, and feeling that they are a conduit, you know, for certain messages. Has that been your experience or not? Can you relate to that?
Yeah, no, I can. Ida B. Wells is just, you know, she was a writer, of course, and, you know, and she chose to take on a battle of lynching. And what a battle it was. She consistently wrote about it, and something about her just resonated with me, having wanted to initially been a writer. Her courage has been an inspiration for me. I felt that if there was anyone that spoke to me that said, you know, tell a story, it was definitely her, because the courage that she took to write about lynching and to stand up. She eventually had to leave her children and abscond to Europe and spend the rest of her life there because there was a bounty on her head. If she stepped back into the States, she would have been the next person lynched. But the courage of that and to write about it. So yeah, I felt her spirit saying to me, tell a story, paint it. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask 2 more questions, then I'm going to open the floor for any of your questions. So if you can begin to think about what you might want to ask. You've said that your art is influenced by Picasso, Basquiat, and Bill Traylor. Can you speak to what about them you were drawn to and how you see them influencing your art?
Probably Picasso was my first. You know, if you're going to fall in love with art, they're going to say, who do you like? Picasso, Rivera, you know. They're not going to say, do you like Basquiat, you know. But they get around to that one. So Picasso, a lot of people told me, you know, oh, check his work out. And I did. I did love it. And I think what I loved most about it was the imperfection. That one eye was down here and one's up here. That worked for me. It said to me that there's no such thing as beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and there's no such thing as perfection. And you know, you could look at a painting by the masters like Rembrandt and you could see everything is perfect. But then I saw Picasso and I'm like, wow, you know, one hand is bigger than the other, and it just kind of gave me a sense that I could paint and it doesn't have to be perfect. So my first, and then I discovered Bill Traylor, and wow, I really fell in love with his work because of his story. Here was a man born into slavery who, when he was emancipated, decided to stay on and sharecrop. Married 3 times, had 15 children, never learned how to read. 82 years old, he becomes a rock star in the art world. And that just kind of gave me hope that it's never too late. Plus, I love his work. It's just, it's phenomenal. It's very simplistic. It's raw. But there's just no Bill Traylor painting that you could look at and say, I don't like it. You know, everything is whimsical, it's lighthearted, but there's symbolism there. I don't think that he realized at the time that he was making social statements with this work, but if you look deep enough, it's there. And so definitely inspiration. And then for Basquiat, I just love the fact that he was in tune with what was out in the street, and he was bold enough to put it on a canvas and call it art. And with him, he used everything. Crayons, Sharpies, you know, and I think for me that those artists gave me the permission to be creative without that master's in fine art. which I was intimidated by, because, you know, lots of folks in the business, you know, well, where have you shown, and you know, what's your, you know, your process? And I'm thinking, I don't know if I have a process, you know, but I don't know that Basquiat did either. I think he just put it all out there, and it gelled and it worked. And so I think those three artists in special have been an influence for me, because they gave me permission to just do the same thing. Whether I'm doing this, the painting could be social statement, political statement, spiritual, could be about love. You find that there, but I'm just going to do the painting. So, and I think that's what Bill Traylor was doing. He was just painting two dogs fighting, but you look at it and you think, wow, I love this painting.
Yeah. Thank you, Phoebe. My last question is, when you're painting this work and creating this work, and you're thinking about some of the stories, and you also have what's, you know, happening in the, you know, country now, what are the emotions that you're feeling, and how do you, and if any of those emotions, well, what are the emotions that you're feeling, and how do you yeah, what are the emotions that you're feeling? I'll just leave that there.
Given the nature of where we're at today, you know, there's a lot of censoring going on with black art.
Bless you.
It just makes me more determined to keep doing what I'm doing. And it was always going to continue that way anyway, but even more so now, there's a conviction to continue to paint this particular subject, to tell the story and the plight of the African American people. Not so long ago, I read that they were asking the sheriffs, or not sheriffs, park rangers in some of the parks that Underground Railroad had passed through, to kind of maybe not talk so much about the Underground Railroad, and don't even mention Harriet Tubman while you're doing the tour. What? Are you kidding me? Don't mention Harriet Tubman? Don't our children and their children have the right to know about a hero, about an amazing person who was bold and bad? So I plan on continuing to paint Harriet Tubman or something thereabout, as long as I'm able to, because the story can't be watered down, shouldn't be negated. It's important to keep that stuff alive.
Thank you.
So the environment that we are in today, where it's being censored, is just an impetus for me to keep painting, and hope that others do as well.
Thank you, and thank you, thank you for your work, and thank you for what you've shared with us today. Thank you for your commitment. It's really been a pleasure to showcase your work.
Thank you.
I want to open the floor to any questions that any of you may have. Thank you. I'll start with you, sir.
I was surprised that you did not mention Jacob Lawrence as an artist. Are you familiar?
I'm not. No.
No?
No.
Wow.
Should I be? In what relation? Because of his subject matter, or because style?
Style, subject matter, storytelling. I mean, the painting directly behind you, that blue overall, that's a Jacob Lawrence line right there.
Really?
Yes. I mean, that's amazing that you have not. You're going to be very happy. Jacob Lawrence.
Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jacob Lawrence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll share it with her. Teresa, please. Next question. Teresa?
Hi, yes. So I want to thank you so much. This was great. I have two questions, if I might. I noticed that in most of the paintings there is a building or kind of structure. Can you talk a little bit about why there is a home, or there's some sort of home or building? And then my second question, so you can tackle both, is that your women in your artwork seem to be really kind of stylized, almost like fashionista.
Yes, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Well, again, just elevating the beauty of the female, that's it. I agree with you. There's no question about it. I take pains to to represent the female who is the beautiful counterpart of the male and holds up the male. And so, yeah, I typically did choose to put beautiful clothes on them despite difficult times, colorful and bright and bold. But again, with that in mind, just to elevate the female, that your eyes would be drawn to her. And as far as the buildings, yeah, I think that their structure, that the building represents structure, which we still had, despite the fact that those simple homes that they lived in, the four walls are what holds you up. And so I think that's the intention behind the home. The building there, of course, is an auction house, which the house here, the big house, okay, they represented a structure that meant something in those days. You know, you had your little cabin, if you will. There was the big house where some aspired to work, and there was the bigger of the biggest, and that would be a official auction house where it all began. So there was always a structure that made an impact on their lives. Home, the big house, or the ultimate house, the auction houses. Thank you.
The question all the way in the back.
Hi.
Hello.
I just want to start by saying I love what I see so far. I haven't gone up close, but
Thank you.
just a visual from here. But to what Sandra was saying, like in the state of this country, and like I would love to have this art in my house, right? But under what we are facing as a country and how things are being removed from museums and the plight of the African American suffering is almost trying to be erased somewhat. You're painting this. How do you regulate your emotions under this level of pressure?
Yeah, and I think we touched on that a little bit. It's good to bring that pain to the surface and to funnel that pain into activism. And I'm not an activist, at least I've always said that. But some people have corrected me and said, well, you sure? You sure? You sure about that? But so, no, like I said, you're absolutely right. It is, as I'm doing the research and I'm hearing about one person defecating in another human being's mouth and I'm painting pictures of people being lynched and the pain of that and knowing about, I read a story about something called the Weeping Time, where the largest slave auction took place. 430 men, women, and children. The plantation owner was in horrific debt, $700,000 just squandered away. Property was seized, and he realized, well, I still have something to sell. 430 people. They had to use a racetrack. It was so many. They said you could hear the weeping for a mile away as the children were being torn from the parents, and couple families were being separated. Yeah, you think about something like that and then you paint an auction house, or it is painful, but through the pain you tell yourself, how do we affect a change? How do we stop what's happening with the art museums and grants being taken away? If that's signing a petition, if that's just giving your voice, if that's supporting Black art, we do it. Thank you.
You had a question here, and then you.
It was kind of that question, because I'm also a figurative painter, and a lot of my references are from photos that we've, and I say we because this is my mom.
Oh, hi.
We've collected over time. So when as an adult, I look back at the photos, and through recontextualizing what actually happened, like I could kind of synthesize the adult emotions that were taking place in the photo, and you have a lot of very sensitive subject. So I was wondering how you deal with that internally as you're working. Like, did you have to stop sometimes?
Yes.
Like crying inside and like have to.
How do you not walk outside and punch somebody?
No, no, absolutely, and I, you're right. I did touch on that a little bit. That there is anger, that comes about. And I do, like, maybe that is why it takes me so long to finish the painting, because now I'm really wanting to know what this happened. And so as you go deeper, you get more emotional. But the painting is cathartic. It really is. As I'm doing it, I'm starting to feel like I'm giving life to something. And it's going to start a dialogue about it, and that's going to make it all worth it. So yeah, in the process, there's a whole array of emotions that you go through, mostly anger, and which you struggle with getting mad, because that doesn't change anything. But that's probably the deepest emotion that comes from it, but it dissipates. That's the beauty of anger. It burns off. It might be a slow burn, but by the time I finish the painting, I'm feeling better, and so there's a catharsis that goes along with that. Yeah.
Moses, please don't forget your question, but I just want to ask this very quickly. Does your practice as a mental health professional, as a psychiatric nurse, does your training support you in navigating, all these things? Because we clearly in this room, as we're looking at some of this work and thinking about you doing this and thinking about what's happening in the world, we're certainly wondering, how do you stay even?
Right.
So does your training support you in?
Yes, I teach primarily cognitive behavioral therapy, which essentially is looking at the glass as half full as opposed to half empty. And so I could look at this and just get pure anger out of it, or I could say, you know what, there's a beauty that comes from everything, from all suffering. And so, the cognitive behavioral, it helps me a lot, because I don't look at things as this glass is half empty anymore. I look at it as this was history, it happened, and where do we go from here? And that's the same thing that we teach patients that are suffering from, especially depression, where they typically look at everything is wrong in my life, it'll never get better. Oh, we flip that script and we say, let's talk about the things that are good in your life. And so that's where I find the greatest pride, because I love being a Black woman. And so as I'm painting it, there is that side of it that makes me mad, but it also makes me very proud.
Thank you. Moses?
Wow. Thank you everyone else for asking all the other questions. Took care of the bulk of it. I do have one left, but before I ask my tiny question, it is a tiny one. I wanted to offer that you are absolutely on the front lines, being brave and unselfish with your gift to shed light and insight, even on masses and millions of eyes that are unwilling to curb their ancestors, because if they had, it wouldn't look the same now as it did back then, because it looks identical. The clothing has changed and the technology has changed, but the descendants of our oppressors have failed miserably at putting a stop to it. So you're literally on the front lines, being brave, being powerful, being a champion, not only for our success, but for humanity as a whole, inviting those who've been turning their head this whole time to consider, just connecting again so that we can sit down and chill as people. That takes a lot of love. Wow. And this is without training. This is without knowing who Jacob Lawrence is.
I'm not going to live that down.
No. It requires Thank you, Dennis. No, it requires authenticity and heart and real talent. And
Thank
the fact that you've been so unselfish to share this with us is enormous.
Thank you.
It's enormous.
Thank you.
So bless you. Now, my question, when you're at play, because part of this is we're playing with colors, and it's beautiful. What's your favorite thing about what you're doing?
When I'm painting? Well, I paint with music on. Oh yeah, always. I have the playlist for painting, and once I get that on, glass of wine, it's just pure joy. You know what I mean? I just feel so good in the moment. There's nothing else that matters, So yeah, this is my,
What's in your playlist?
oh, what's on my playlist? Oh, yeah, well, no, everything. No, there is no rhyme or reason to it. You can't say, oh, you're into jazz. Yeah, but then the next song might be something completely different. But there's several playlists. It just depends really upon what I'm painting too. When you're painting something like this, you probably want something with jazz. When you're painting something like this, you want R&B, you know, so, but it's just pure joy. That's, I feel good, elevated when I'm painting.
And you're singing also, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm singing too, yes.
So she's singing and painting.
That's right, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob?
I had a question to when you was talking about this painting, about this woman, and you said that you don't believe she was in Africa hanging clothes.
Not this, right, with this long dress on and.
Not with this long dress.
Yeah.
I want you to elaborate on that. Do you think that she learned hanging clothes or whatever here, or did she bring that with her?
Oh no. Listen, you had to mimic what you knew, and as I said, pretty impressive how quickly they were able to assimilate and accommodate.
So your thoughts on the matter is that these indigenous practices of washing clothes by hand and hanging them to dry is something they learned here, not something that they had
No,
in the past in Africa.
There were no pants. You know what I mean? She wouldn't have had these clothes on. You know what I'm saying? That part I'm referring to. That how quickly, even the language, but just Christianity. I mean, how do you go from worshiping several gods to coming here and embracing Christianity, because that's basically all there was. But it very quickly became a part of who they were. I think that's impressive, that wearing this dress and with this rag around her hair here and to accommodate that so quickly, and the language, and the food. I mean, were it not for these provisional gardens where they could grow things like okra or collard greens or yams, they were eating food that was completely different to them. So, yeah, certainly washing clothes by hand is, you know, that they would have been familiar with, but just the nature of washing out a sheet, those types of things, all a part of their new life, if you will. Mm-hmm. Hi.
All the way in the back, yes.
Thank you for sharing earlier about how, like, you know, like a piece.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Sure. So I appreciate you sharing earlier about how, like, if you're working on something and it's not quite right, you'll paint over it.
Yeah.
And so I was just really curious about that.
Yeah.
I guess the point in which you realize that you want to go a different direction, even like if you feel any sense of grief about what you're painting over, maybe like not finishing that story versus a new one or alter one. I was just like,
Yeah, I have, that lynching painting is not the first. There have been several of them, and that I just never showed anybody, because I'm thinking in my head, and I'm thinking, are people thinking, if you see it, that I'm glamorizing something so horrific and profound as a person being lynched for virtually doing nothing? So a lot of those paintings, I either just never showed them to anyone, or I painted over them, because I did at the time feel this is just, I'm not ready to go there and address this. The one painting that Sandra chose and I did decide to exhibit, it's just a little bit lighter, if you can lighten up such a sobering subject. But you look at it and you see the color, you see the expressions on their faces, their eyes are open. So it would have been, you know, shortly after they died and before they cut them down. The trees and hopefully the leaves kind of detract from the pain of what the story is. But yeah, there have been some paintings that I haven't shown to anyone or I painted over them because I thought it was just too harsh. Mm-hmm.
Are you feeling braver?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, yeah. And more inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. Yes.
Hi.
Hey.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's incredible. It really is. when I came last week, I was sort of taken by, like, I love the fact that it seems like you've recycled, like, old frames and stuff.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that in a lot of them, like, even the inside of the frame is the same color. Like, are you actually painting over original paintings as well?
A lot of them I've painted over my original paintings.
Your
Yeah.
original paintings?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I recycle.
And I love
I
that,
embrace
you know.
the starving artist.
Yeah.
But you know, whether it's
Well, that
Yeah.
suits my Scottish frugal background.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but like, I just thought there's sometimes a catharsis in painting over someone else's history and rewriting your own. You know, so I was just wondering if there was other people's painting out
Yeah.
there that you painted over.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think that it probably would be, you know, but for me, when I decide, nah, this is not going to work and I cover it over, there's always a reason for it, even if I thought the subject matter was too harsh, or most of the time and I just didn't like the outcome, you know. Yeah.
I forgot that somebody, I see your hand, I forgot that somebody asked me to ask you why some of the faces are black, why some of the faces are brown, why some of the faces have features, and why some of them do not.
Well, for one particular painting, I think it's probably in the corner over there, it's several gentlemen being auctioned.
Yes.
I chose to only give facial features to one person in that, and he's in a pillory. A pillory was used to put your head is out and your arms are here, and people could throw food at you, they could beat you about the head, they could spit on you, curse at you. And I thought I want to give him facial features, but none of the others, because it just didn't seem that it was important. Their body language, I wanted the viewer to look at their body language as opposed to their eyes, which you're going to be drawn to eyes right away. So sometimes I wanted that, like in Betty and Sam there, I wanted you to be drawn into their eyes. She looks kind of sad, he looks kind of, aimless. But for the ones that don't have facial features, I didn't want you to be drawn to that. And to address your question about pigmentation,
yes.
I chose the black for darker subjects like the auction. After a long day of work, there's no facial features here and they're just black. Not important. What's important is the body language. She's a little bit tilted over. The females are trying to hold their head up high. And so I wanted the focus to be on the body language as opposed to being detracted by facial features and eyes, which always draw you in. And the pigmentation sometimes was just a choice of, if I had a lot of brown already in the painting, I didn't, you know what I mean? Yes.
Thank you. Sir, yes.
No, go ahead.
The color blue runs through your
It does.
but the color green also. And apparently, with the grass and the trees, is there symbolism or power that you're conveying with this green and grass and trees?
Well, the blue we discussed a little bit before you came.
No, I heard about the blue.
Oh, you were here? The green represents, of course, capitalism and money. These ladies are going shopping. They have money. Okay, they're going. Yeah.
Because you surround that bus completely with green. My interpretation was completely different.
Was it? Yeah.
Anyway, green runs through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love how you've used the green in this piece. And when I saw this piece, I thought of this being a family who, they're in suburbia. You know, it's having this green grass, the basketball was an indication of, having moved on up.
This is the American dream.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
green,
the station
capitalism.
wagon. Exactly.
Yes.
Not just a station wagon, but when I was coming up, if you had that station wagon with the paneling, that was
wood paneling, right?
Yes. Yes.
Right. How intuitive is your process? You're saying with the body language and no face. Is it a conscious decision prior to starting the work, or is it intuitive that as you work, it begins to evolve, and then you see the story?
Yes. Yeah, no, initially when I'm sketching, I'm just thinking, what is this painting going to be about? As I start to fill it in and I've done my research, I just keep thinking about that 18-hour workday in this painting and how bent over you would be, and how as they're walking by the big house there, still holding their heads up. So as I'm painting, it's starting to tell me the story. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like to know the reflection in the mirror of the bus.
Yeah, those are actually African Americans, just small bits and pieces that I cut up of them. I just thought it was important to say this is a bus for everyone. It's black and white. All of the windshields there, it's black and white. Yeah. Our bus, anyone's bus.
There's a question all the way in the back.
I have a question that may be for both of you, maybe for neither of you, but you can decide. But I remember when I was here for the opener night, Sandra, we were talking, amongst other things, about your trip to Ghana, and I know you mentioned you had more to say on that I was curious about, and I guess I don't know what more you had to say specifically, but if that's something relevant to this, maybe connections to Africa, I don't know, I'll leave it to you.
That's a good question.
Yeah, one thing I could say is that particularly coming from Ghana and given the experience of what's happening in this country and going to Ghana and experiencing the dungeons and walking where slaves were captured and where they were tortured in ways that I don't even think that we have adequate language to describe, it made this work resonate even more. It became even more important to be sure that this story was told, particularly given an administration who has said that to share the story of the slave narratives, the narratives of the enslaved, is to be divisive. Mm-hmm. So this is also for me as a curator and a gallerist, it's a resistance to what's being said nationally. I think it's important for all Americans to see this story and to know that some of the privilege that we sit with as Americans is based on the lives of the enslaved, and that it's based on the lives of those now in this capitalist system who are still being oppressed. That's it. And again, it's important to tell both parts of the story. The part of this being the truth of a global experience, but really hone in on the experience nationally. But the other part of it is the title of the exhibit, that we're still here, that we have deep in our DNA, the ability to navigate, to survive, to thrive, to come through. I think that's a very, very important message for us right now, and a message for all of us, because I think all of us who are conscious are experiencing something that is not good, right now. But I think that we have an opportunity to, as you said, when you talked about, glass half empty, glass half full, to return personally to our sources of strength, to return to personally other experiences that we have gotten through, to identify our community, to understand that, we're going to have to, strengthen, our community, to be activists in whatever way that we, can be activists. Some of us may be marchers, writers, but your activism may be smiling at the person who that day appears to be, downtrodden. But certainly, yes, Ghana shifted something, and You know, I'm glad that we're here and that you're here, and the fact that you're here participating in this conversation says that that some good is happening, you know, that we're on the right track. I don't even have the words to articulate what your presence means in terms of knowing that we're not alone in understanding that this conversation and this work is important. And thank you so much for what you said, you know, Moses, about how this is brave work, you know, brave work. And I'm glad that you're committed to continuing. We're going to close now so that you all have a chance to move around the room, to look again at the work. All of the work is for sale. If it doesn't have a red dot on it, the pieces that have a red dot are sold. I also want to let you know that Phoebe has tote bags. She has merchandise. Thank you.
Merch.
She has tote bags. She has sweatshirts. She has hoodies. They're up front and also in the back, and the prices are $20, $30, and $40. There's something else that there's refreshments in the back. What else am I supposed to say, Hollis? I'm forgetting something. But take a look around and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. What's your next? Talk to us quickly about the reconstruction series that you're working on.
I'm working on reconstruction. I can't promise you it's going to be, it's a painful time, but it is what it is. There was some beauty there. There was some great starts, and there was some setbacks, but I'm working on reconstruction. We are moving on. We are still here.
Thank you for allowing me to show you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.